we create possible. Together, we create possible.
Welcome to the Young Epilepsy podcast, where we discuss topics that are important to young people and children living with epilepsy. We offer information and tools that will help them in their everyday life and support their family, friends, and the health and education professionals who care for them. I'm your host, Ronell, member of the Youth Voice Network at Young Epilepsy. Today, we're joined by
Mariana Nicolau, the manager of the Youth Support Service for Young Epilepsy.
My name's Alex Cox. I'm one of the youth support coordinators as part of our youth support service.
Welcome. Whether a young person with epilepsy, a parent or carer, this episode's for you. So let's get started. So Mariana, what does a youth support manager do?
Gosh, lots of things. Our main kind of directive really is about supporting young people with epilepsy. We've seen that young people with epilepsy across the UK are quite isolated. They don't really have many places to go, to talk to people, to, sort of get each other's stories, sort of speak to one another. So we came together and thought, right, let's bring together a couple of great workers and start offering some support for some young people. So as a manager, I work with a great team of youth support coordinators. Alex is one of them. And we look at what young people need, what they want. We've worked with young people like yourself, for example, because I know that Alex used to support you back in the day.
Back in the day, I'm feeling old. But
Back in the day, that was quite a few years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah. Maybe 7 years ago.
Oh, wow.
No.
Probably, yeah, because I was 8.
7 years?
Yeah, 7, 6. Yeah, that.
Long.
Definitely.
I didn't even think I've been in the job that long. Seriously. 7 years.
Which is a good thing,
Yeah.
because that means you really enjoy it.
This is like a big reunion, and I guess really with both of us back in the same room, first time in probably a couple of years actually. I think since I've seen you. Yeah.
And now you're thriving, which is incredible. But anyway, so sorry, going back.
No, anyway, that was an amazing insight in what a youth support manager does. I guess my question to Alex is, what's your favorite part about being a youth support coordinator?
I love it. It's really hard to pick one thing that I would say that I particularly love. The thing is, the role is so varied. So a lot of my week is spent one-to-one with young people. So with children, young adults, doing a lot of kind of mentoring, sitting down with them kind of face-to-face, either online or person-to-person, just kind of talking through whatever's going on for them that week and just seeing how I can help. Like that element of the work I will always love. That's kind of what keeps me in the job. That's what I want. When I get up in the morning, that's what I want to do, because that's where I think we have the biggest impact. But I also kind of enjoy, we do like support groups as well. So we run like a youth club online, and we kind of get up and around the UK as well. So we do sort of go out to like various events, conferences, talk a little bit about the work we do and that element. So that's 3 things, right? But I'll put them in that order. So like mentoring, I love, group work, I love, and then, getting out and promoting the service as well is something I enjoy.
So would you say, in a sense, building a sense of community?
That's I think is really, really important. I mean, I think everything we do is geared towards that at the end of the day. Like,
I agree.
100%.
Time and time again, like the number one thing we hear when we talk to parents or young people is that they feel like the kids feel like they're on their own. The young person feels like they're on their own. They feel like they're isolated. They don't feel like anyone understands them. Like they've had the diagnosis and they feel like they're the only person in the world who has epilepsy. Whereas we know there's like hundreds of people across the UK who are facing the exact same challenges. So the work we can do with someone one-to-one, amazing. That's always going to be the bit that I really am passionate about. But you're right, like everything is about bringing people together and creating that sense of community as well.
I think because we deliver online, so the majority of our work is delivered virtually, we're able to reach young people wherever they live. So even if they live in extremely remote areas, they can join via any type of device, hop online, and we're able to provide that support. And I think that's why our youth club has become quite successful. It's busy every single month, and we have registrations from across the UK, don't we? From sort of south right to the north. And just means that any young person with epilepsy living in the UK can access our services and access one of the support workers if they needed support directly one-to-one, or hop onto one of our groups. We have like revision groups for exam preparation. We work a lot with hospitals, don't we, to kind of, sort of work with epilepsy nurses and different organisations. So I think that's the great thing about being able, like you said, going back to the community thing, is that even though they might not feel they have a community in where they live, there is a virtual community that they can access.
I suppose that's a big thing for me, really, and we've seen that over the last few years, haven't we, with the kind of the young people that have reached out to our service, is that there might be someone who's living in a little village, right? And it could be in the middle of the country, it could be, up in Scotland, it could be anywhere, right? And look, if you live in a major town, if you live in London, if you live in Manchester, Birmingham, whatever, the chances are there are going to be some things around for you, not necessarily, right? Not as much as we want there to be. But like, if you live in a remote village, there's nothing.
Yeah.
So we've been trying to think a lot.
It's normally quite far
Yeah.
to go to get some sort of support. I mean, if you live in a city, there is, like you said, more access, but when you are remote and you have to travel quite far, and then the nurses tend to cover bigger regions, don't they? So they are less available as well. So I think that's why our service kind of stands out, because you hop online and we've got young people that join our youth club that have different accents from across the UK. And some young people have never heard those accents before. And they're like, gosh, where are you from? I've not heard. I'm not going to try and do an accent because my accents are horrendous. But they're very much kind of like, we've not seen that, and they share each other's stories as well, which I think is incredible. But yeah.
No, 100%.
Definitely a community, isn't it?
Yeah. The UK-wide community.
Yeah.
But I think this is a good segue into what we're talking about next. So yeah, let's talk about the different types of support young epilepsy offers. We've talked about like the access, how you can access them online, in group meetings, one-to-one. But Mariana, can you explain what one-to-one support is and why it's important?
Yeah, defo. So we, whenever we start working with a young person, it's because they've approached us. It will either be via their clinician, via the nurse, by the parent care, or they can self-refer as well. They can come straight to us. And it's really to support a young person to help them through their journey. It's basically like somebody holding your hand next to you, but not next to you in the same time. So it's about being able to speak to somebody who understands what you're going through. We know having epilepsy is not an easy thing, even for an adult, let alone for a young person who has to navigate their way through so many different changes. It can be a young person who's in primary school, moving to secondary, and that in itself alone, without having the epilepsy side of it, is a huge worry as well. We help young people that are progressing in life. They're going from kind of adolescence into adults. So it's at different stages. Young people may need to reach out and get some support just to have a chat with somebody, a bit like sort of how you were when you started talking to Alex and needed that support. So it's just there really for anybody that needs it. We provide quite a short kind of support. So it's really about just hopping online, having a chat about the things that you're struggling with. It might be something to do with friendships. It might be something to do with school. It might be that parents are not letting you be independent, which comes up quite a lot, doesn't it? That's usually quite a common one. Mum doesn't let me go out, like I have to text her all the time. She doesn't let me catch the bus and it's so embarrassing. So all of those kind of things. So we kind of offer that to support, to help you navigate your way through certain things. It can be a phone call, it can be a couple of online video sessions, 2, 3, 10, it's depending on how much support you need. So that really kind of is what our one-to-one is, but it's all about what the young person needs the support on.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point, because it's got to be led by the individual. You know, there's sometimes when I meet up with young people who've been sort of referred into our service, I mean, the first meeting, I'm always kind of open-minded as to like where the conversation can go and what kind of support they need. It's like sometimes what people come to you straight away is they have certain anxieties or fears. You know, they're every day kind of worried that they're going to have a seizure, or that they're worried about what their friends might think about their epilepsy, which are, you know, those are kind of deep conversations to have that you need to sit down and work on. Or like Marion was saying, it might be that actually it's finding a balance, because parents want to keep the kids safe, they want to keep younger people safe, but they've got to also allow them that room to grow and develop and like gain their independence. So it's finding the balance between those two extremes, right? Because you don't want people to be at risk, but at the same time, life is full of risks. You got to take risks. So you're kind of coaching people through that a little bit. And sometimes it really just comes down to problems in education or school, or all kinds of things, really. I mean, some schools...
What's the most common things that you come across?
Definitely a sense of being isolated. You know, I know there's a lot of conversation in the world at the moment about loneliness and about young people being isolated and not feeling like there's anyone there. I think that's doubly true for the young people that we help. Because I think there's the loneliness and everything else and the isolation that's going on in the world at the moment for a lot of young people. But when you combine that with seizures that might prevent you from getting out, or a sense of maybe, you know, being bullied at school, or not being able to feel like you're understood even, you know, or not having independence, you know what I mean? All of those things, I think.
But it could be, like, a young person can have quite a big social group, can't they? But still feel really isolated.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And I think
100%.
that we've done some work with some young people where they have got a great support network around them, but they still feel quite isolated. So we've done kind of like group sessions with friends, with family, you know, just so they can understand through the young person's eyes what they are going through and what they're experiencing and things like that. So it's still, you know, sort of, you may feel like, you know, okay, they've got lots of friends around them, but they still can feel pretty alone 100%. At times.
Yeah. No, I kind of agree with that. I think that element of not being understood or not having friends that kind of get it, I think is really important. I mean, the other things that come up, probably the second or third things, really. One thing is education. I mean, one of the reasons why we started doing the revision group, right, is because a lot of young people, if they get stressed around exam times, we know that stress can be a trigger for seizures. So that then means you're going to take more time out of education because you're recovering from seizures, or you're going to more medical appointments and that kind of thing. So you miss out on the revision, which then means they start to fall behind academically, which then adds to the stress. And that can be like a really vicious cycle. So I'm personally, I think that like exam time is a big area of stress. I think sometimes as you get older, we forget, for teenagers, particularly in secondary, like how stressful that can be and how much of an impact that has. So we really need to get in with some targeted support around that.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know? So yeah, friendships, independence, thinking of support around that, education. There's one other, my mind's gone blank. What was the other big one that comes?
Independence, friendships, education. Trying to think of what the trends were.
I think another one as well that kind of gets missed out, which is a little bit more complicated and a bit more nuanced, is coming to terms with the epilepsy itself. So as you know, Renelle, as you all know, like as everyone here knows, right, essentially epilepsy is different for everyone, right? So somebody might have a couple of seizures in childhood and then they almost kind of like grow out of it, or they get on the medication and it stops, and that's great. So there might be anxiety at first when they first get diagnosed. But like other people, it's going to be lifelong. They're going to need that medication through their whole life, or they never quite get rid of all the seizures. They keep having those breakthrough seizures and things like that. So then it becomes an impact not just on education and potentially future work opportunities and things like that. Things like not being able to drive, right, can have a huge impact.
Particularly, that was a very big problem for me. Is
because it's kind of like a rite of passage, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? You get to a certain age, and that's it.
That'd be the independence for me. You know, driving, being able to do things on your own, you know, not having someone always there, you know, just having that freedom. And I think a lot of the time, I think definitely when I came to you, there was a sense of I've lost my freedom, you know, I feel alone, I have no sense of direction, it's sort of taken away from me. Those are a lot of the questions that I was asking. And I think that is a common trend, you talking about that now. But also, you both of you touched on group support sessions. Alex, could you tell me what happens during those group sessions?
Yeah. So, okay, we talked at the beginning a little bit about community, right? And the importance of community. So the most important one for that is our youth club. So youth club is basically like an opportunity for young people to meet others who also have epilepsy. So it's open to a kind of range of different ages, and people can come along, and we typically do activities. So usually it's like a group activity, it's some sort of online game, it's some sort of quiz, it's something that's fun, but accessible through an online platform. And the young people jump on, they get to chat to each other, they get to hang out with each other, they do the activity. We usually have a little bit of time in each session to talk about your epilepsy as well, and things that are giving you anxiety and things that are worrying you as well. Because we want to do that little bit of extra emotional support, make sure we're giving people something to go away with. But the most important thing is that connection to other young people and that sense of community, and just showing people that they're not alone. We also do another group, which we call Chat About Your Epilepsy. That is more focused on group support. So whereas the youth club is kind of open, anyone can kind of jump in. It's very lighthearted, it's very fun. We want people to have a good time with it. Chat About Your Epilepsy is for people who want a space that's a little bit more contained. You know, it's a closed group. People have to commit to that, being part of that group. And that's where we have the really serious conversations where we're going to talk about the stuff that people might find difficult, embarrassing, challenging, things that they don't want to necessarily ask anyone else, or, you know, don't feel comfortable talking to their friends about. And we try and do that as like an extra level of like support for those young people. And then, like I said, we've also got like the revision group as well, which is like a targeted group where we talk about how you manage stress around exam time. Because we wanted to, there's a specific problem that we were trying to fix effectively. We wanted to make sure there was something available.
But I think we're always kind of adapting our groups, you know, to suit young people. So if there is anything that comes up, we think we kind of go back to the drawing board, don't we? And we sit there and we go, right. So going back to the Chat About Your Epilepsy groups, we've revamped those. We put it out to vote on our social medias about the name for them as well. And we've just got the poll in. So that's going to be renamed and revamped, and we're kind of, you know, adapting and changing the ages for the age group, for the groups as well, to make it more accessible. And I think it's important that, you know, we work with young people. We work with what's happening at the current time. So it might be something that's going on within the media. It might be a shift, you know, sort of with social media and different things coming out now. We work, you know, sort of adapting our way. But we're always changing our groups. The youth club is our kind of foundation, isn't it? Like our main foundation for everything. But we do, you know, if there are things that come up, and like I said, we can adapt as well. We can deliver, you know, group sort of interventions with a couple of friends as well. We've had some young people who have been in the same school, and we've got them together and delivered a group kind of session like that. So yeah, it's just being very quite flexible as well with things.
Well, there's no like one type of young person, do you know what I mean? Like everyone's got different circumstances. Everyone has a different relationship to epilepsy and how they feel. So, you know, like we have to be adaptable, don't we? Like that's the watchword in everything we do, is it's always tailored to the individual. Do you know what I mean?
But I think that's why, you know, the group support sessions are so beneficial, because everybody has their own story. Everybody can learn something from other people. For me, it's not like, because I'll go to, you know, my neurologist and I'd only get medical advice, but I feel like what Young Epilepsy offers, what these support session offers, is that you can get the emotional support and with people who will understand and, you know, listen to you rather than just give you advice, you know, and
it might be things that you don't want to speak to your parents about. It might be things that you don't want to talk to your teachers about or your nurse. Like, you know, can I go out and drink? Can I do this? Can I do that? Can I vape? Can I whatever? You know, it's those kind of things. And you may not feel comfortable to have those talks, you know, but that's why we're here, to be able to answer, you know, those questions for you and you know, support you in your choices. But, you know, that's why these kind of group sessions work as well, because the young people bounce off of one another. And I think the other thing which is really important is that we've had young people that join us online in a group session where they may have a seizure whilst they're in the session, whilst they're online. But it's such a non-judgmental place. It's very safe for young people to be, because nobody judges anybody in that group, because they're all going through the same, experience as one another. So it is very supportive, isn't it?
Yeah,
In that way.
100%. But that's the idea of community there as well. Which,
Yeah.
you know, that ain't,
I was going to say that. I think that's so good that it builds that community. But can you share a story about how a face-to-face meetup has helped someone with epilepsy? I know, obviously, me. You both here.
Yeah. Do we want to talk about that? I mean, Renelle, I know you've maybe chatted in the past a little bit about your experience with the sodas. I mean, do we want to just talk about that? Like,
Yeah, no, 100%. You know, I've said this always before. Like, I met you, Alex. I didn't have a sense of direction. I didn't know where I really wanted to go. I think with you listened to me, and you helped me kind of craft my own roadmap of what I could do with epilepsy. You showed me that it doesn't define me, it doesn't hold me back. I'm not alone in what I'm facing. You know, meeting other people, having support like group support sessions. So yeah, I mean, I just think it's amazing. Like, I just think it's amazing. It's really beneficial to have these support sessions and from being at Young Epilepsy and seeing that loads of other people are able to access it, and it doesn't matter where, like, from where you are in the UK. That's been really great to see.
How was it for you meeting other young people with epilepsy?
No, it was really good. Like, yeah, it showed that I wasn't alone. I learned stuff from them, learned tips, tricks, you know, make sure I have a routine. But yeah, I had a sense of belonging. Yeah.
That's it.
I tell you something. We did a family session recently. I was down in Birmingham, and we were doing a group meetup with all like different families. And one thing that really came out of that discussion, when talking a bit about independence and learning tips and tricks. So one parent would be like, okay, my kid has epilepsy. They're not going anywhere on their own. I've got to monitor them 24/7. You know what I mean? And they were like, everything was like locked down around this kid. They weren't going out anywhere, right? But then putting them in a discussion where there was other parents and other young people, and they're like, oh, yeah, no, we just did this.
Yeah.
You know, we got like a wearable seizure alarm. Oh, you know, I just check in to make sure that he's got on the bus okay, or whatever. Do you know, whatever it may be. And like, they had that conversation, and suddenly you could see, because this is the thing, I'm not saying that mindset is wrong, because this is a parent protecting their child, right? We have to understand that. They want to make sure that their child is safe. But as that kid's getting older, you're not going to keep them wrapped in cotton wool forever. And even if they have the epilepsy, you know, that's just one part of them and one part of their life. They need to go out and pursue their career and do whatever they're going to do and what have you. So that's what I was saying at the beginning about balance. I'm not judging the parents or saying that that attitude is wrong, because it's about safety, right? You have a child with a very complex set of medical needs. You want to make sure they're safe. But as they get older,
Share that, but no, when
hearing it from another parent is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like having another parent come along, or having an older young person come along and say, yes, when I was there, this is how I did it. You know.
And we've also got young people as well that have like swapped numbers and stuff like that, and have now become and developed quite close friendships with other young people from kind of like the face-to-face groups. You know, it's all done via consent and all of that, but they've now formed some really good friendships. And I think some of the parents have as well, haven't they? It's about just being able to have that space to talk. We work closely with Epilepsy Action as well, because we use their services quite a lot, especially for the adults, don't we? Because they offer some really, really good advice, and they offer like support groups, coffee mornings and things like that. So for parents that we know are struggling, we kind of always will refer parents over to them. But for young people, you know, we kind of try to hold them, you know, sort of within our groups and give them that support. And they do really seem to thrive from it. It's really good.
Mm-hmm. No, 100%. Because you ask it, I suppose it started off thinking about stories around sort of supporting young people. I'm trying not to like, obviously I'm anonymizing things in my head because I don't want to like talk too much about specifics, right? For obvious reasons. I mean, some of the stories we've seen, you know, Marina brought it up a little bit, touched upon that a little bit in the independence thing, things like relationship to alcohol and things like that, and like how you manage that, like the peer pressure, you know, when people are like going to university or when they're getting a bit older, and, you know, those kind of things happen. That's something that's come up a lot in my discussions. Some other times though, you know, you work with younger people who have just recently been diagnosed, and really a lot of it just comes down, like you say, just to listening, being there with them, just saying, look, you know, this isn't the end of the world, you know, like whatever the
In
outcomes.
schools as well. I think so when young people have seizures in schools, that's a big thing.
Well, I think there's a lot of misconceptions, like because yeah, you're right. Like the seizures in schools are a big problem. Sometimes I think schools just think about that. Do you know what I mean? They don't think about everything else that goes with it. So like, again, I'm not like, I don't want to sound like I'm having to go to schools, right? I'm not like criticizing here, but like, it can be really complicated if you've got a kid who's having frequent seizures or frequent medical appointments, because a lot of schools are under pressure around attendance. So we see that a lot, and you see like schools come back to kids and parents about, well, why are we only here like 70% of the time, 8% of the time? It's like, well, you know, it's a medical condition, it's a known thing. But because there's pressure on heads to like record that, sometimes you've got to like.
But then it's the embarrassment of having a seizure, and so I say the embarrassment that the young people go through about having seizures in schools. And I think that's when they start to, you know, but sharing those stories that where young people have, you know, gone through experiences like that, I think really helps as well. So yeah, I think the groups virtually and in person help in many different ways, don't they?
Yeah, definitely. There's some people, I think the group sessions are probably more beneficial because they get that sense of community, but some people really need the one-to-one. They need a supportive environment. Do you know what I mean? To like work through and start thinking about where they're at, where they want to go, those kind of things. It just depends on the person in a way. Do you know what I mean? Of what kind of suits their needs. One thing that's come up a lot recently is bullying. Bullying is a huge problem within the community of young people with epilepsy. So there's been a lot of cases I've personally encountered where young people, there's been others in their class or their year who haven't understood what the seizures are. There's a lot of ignorance around epilepsy. People vaguely know that epilepsy has something to do with seizures. They've probably maybe seen what we'd call a tonic-clonic seizure or a convulsive seizure.
That's what I was going to say.
Like maybe they know.
It is one of those drop to the floor kind of seizures. And I think it's not understanding that there are lots of different types of seizures, especially the absence ones. The absence are
Daydreaming and then, you know.
Right, yeah, like absence seizures, focal seizures. Sometimes you can have little behaviors and things that people won't even necessarily think were epilepsy. So I've seen cases of young people where like their peers have been like copying their seizures or like trying to like pretend like they're doing that or treating them like they're different because of it.
Or it's things like being called a freak or, you know, you're a weirdo, nobody wants to hang with you. Yeah, those kind of things, which we do.
It's hard because some of it is ignorance, I think, because it's not necessarily as well known about as maybe other conditions, or it's a bit of a mysterious condition in ways to some people. I'm not saying to us, but like to people in the public in general, like you know that something is different about one of your classmates, and you know sometimes that you can have those dynamics in schools where someone is different, so they get kind of singled out, you know, particularly if they're getting a lot of attention from staff or they're like not attending school as often, and that can be really brutal. And also as well, like in this day and age, one big problem is online bullying as well, and like, you know, harassment on social media we know is a big problem for young people. We even had cases, and this comes up frequently, of people trying to post flashing images to social media in order to try and trigger seizures. And I know, like, you know, there's only so many young people with epilepsy who are photosensitive, so but still, it's like an attempt to try and trigger a medical event in someone. That is horrific.
A lot of the time when young people are in school, if they've had a seizure as well, what happens is their parents will get called and they have to come and collect them from school, which means that they miss the rest of the day, usually, isn't it? And it also means that parents have to adapt their lifestyle a lot, you know, to work around the young person. So we've had a lot of parents that have given up work, actually now also work in the school, don't they? We've had a lot of parents that try to get jobs that work in the school to prevent bullying as well, you know, but just to make sure that that support is there for young people. But I think, yeah, definitely the most common things are the bullying, like you said, the online bullying. You were just talking about that as well, the online bullying. I don't know if you want to go into that a little bit more.
Well, yeah, I mean, the online bullying, you know, it is a problem now, isn't it? I mean, a lot of young people face, it's not just young people with epilepsy generally, but like people, you know,
trolling.
Yeah, I mean, back in our day, do you know what I mean? It all stops at the school gate.
No.
But you know what I mean? Like, but like for previous generations, let's say, like you could expect any kind of social issue or like bullying or whatever to stop at school gates. It doesn't now, does it? Because you carry your social life around in your pocket these days. So you just got to be mindful of that, really.
Definitely.
You know, and it's so easy when people are like hiding behind social media and the anonymity of that to just say really cruel, spiteful stuff, do you know what I mean? And not really mean it. I mean, the other thing as well, and coming back to like maybe having seizures in school a little bit, I genuinely think that unless you have a lot of experience with epilepsy, I don't think people realize how frightening it can be to see someone have a seizure, you know? And I think it takes a little while. Sometimes people react in a really negative way. And I'm not justifying the bullying, not at all, right? But I think that it can take a little while for people to kind of understand what they're seeing. It's why we kind of need to raise a little bit of awareness, really. And it's something I hope that tangentially, as we're supporting young people, kind of happens, because it is mysterious. There is a lot of ignorance, there is a lot of fear and all the rest of it. And I also get that reflected in the young people that I talk to. So in a lot of my one-to-one sessions, people will say, okay, well, like, what happens if someone sees me have a seizure, or they feel really embarrassed? Because it's a vulnerable thing. They feel really vulnerable. They're going through a medical emergency. Sometimes people are crowding around them. Maybe they come round and people are looking down at them. Or in general, they're just in a really, really vulnerable place. And like, look, I get it. Like, school is a time, particularly in high school and in secondary school, where you're fighting for your identity, you're developing into the person you're going to be, you're showing who you are, you're making friends, you're trying to impress people, there's that social anxiety, right? So the last thing you want to do is be seen as being vulnerable. The last thing you want to do is be helpless in front of your peers, have people running around.
We hide it where people try to hide it.
Yeah.
They don't want to tell people that they have epilepsy, that they don't want to make it a known thing. But then, and it might be those that have the seizures in the evening and at night, rather than it being sort of like at school during the day. And they do try to hide it, but it becomes such a thing where, you know, they're always tired, for example, or they're kind of, you know, falling asleep in class and things like that. But I think that it really is about being, you know, open and honest about, you know, sort of the condition and, you know, what you have. And, you know, we have a lot of young people that come to us saying, oh, but what if I have a seizure and I wet myself? That comes up a lot. You know, sort of, what if people see me do that? And what, you know, it's so embarrassing and we don't want that to happen. And that's the worst thing that could ever happen to me. Like, or if we're leaving school and we're catching the bus and I have a seizure on the bus with everybody there, you know, those are common things that come to us. But that's why accessing our services, you know, you speak to other young people who have been through those scenarios and situations.
And they say, I'm still here. Oh, I made it through.
Yeah.
But it is true though, isn't it? I don't know if because I think about it, so I try and, when I'm talking to young people, I try and bring my mind back to what it was like at school. And it is terrifying. I think as adults, we sometimes forget, do you know what I mean? Like how much of an intense time in people's life that can be. And, you know, when people are younger, they've not had the years of experience to put things into kind of perspective. So it is really challenging. And your social world is everything. And like being embarrassed is devastating if you're a teenager. Do you know what I mean? Of like being seen as different, being seen as vulnerable. Mm-hmm. One thing I try and do with some of the teenagers I work with, I try and like turn it around a little bit. So what I say is like, okay, if you saw someone having a seizure, how would you react? So you think about it, if it was you on the outside looking in,
yeah,
you know, and they always say, well, I'd be really worried. I'd be thinking, do I call an ambulance? And I'm like, okay, so your first reaction is care.
So that's how you need to think that everybody else will react. And I feel like, I think that's why I try to be so open with my epilepsy now. I know it's hard at the start, but I really try to be open, because if I'm open and honest about it, people always want to help. And if they don't want to help, then I wouldn't really consider them as my friend. So, or I would try and, you know, make them understand. But I feel like just being open and honest about it is the best way, because most of the time people just want to help.
Did you find that you were able to do that in secondary school?
So I got diagnosed when I was 18.
Oh, I see, you were a bit older, yeah.
But with my football team, I mean, I went to college with them as well. Yeah, they really just wanted to help. I mean, Alex, you came in and did a presentation, and they were very eager. They were asking questions, and
because a lot of people don't know about it, do they? They don't know what epilepsy is, and I think it's about educating people. And
the misconception.
Yes,
definitely.
Do you know, I say that, I remember back in the days when I was speaking to the football team, like going into that situation, like in my head, I was a little bit worried.
Same.
Because, well, yeah, you know, yeah. Well, like I was really worried because for me, like with any kind of sports, and particularly with young men, I was like, oh, is there going to be like a bit of a macho thing? Do you know what I mean? Is there going to be a little bit of a culture where people, you know what I mean? Like,
I didn't think they'd care because, you know, I'm in a football academy.
Yeah.
At Barnet, they're just trying to get, you know, they're just focusing on trying to get that pro contract. They're not really caring about their teammates, but obviously I was completely wrong.
But and I thought that really surprised me. And it goes to show, do you know what I mean? Once you have that openness, once you open up to that conversation, like actually a lot of that, I mean, I don't know, I don't know if you felt that like a lot of that fear kind of went away because now people are actually really positive and actually really wanting to help, you know?
Yeah. I think, there's a lot of like weight off my shoulders because I didn't really know how receptive people were going to be to the presentation that you were going to, but I thought it was important to do it because and I just feel like once we did it then, I feel like we should just keep doing it actually. So, but.
And it's a bit like that when we sometimes go in and deliver assemblies to the schools as well, because it's about making it, you know, everybody there understand a little bit about epilepsy and, you know, sort of what it is and things like that. Or even when we deliver things virtually as well, you know, to groups and schools and things like that. So it's about just it's really just about educating people about what epilepsy is and that there's many different types of epilepsy and different types of seizures. It's not just one time at all.
40 different types. And
Yeah.
You know, the other one though as well that doesn't get enough mention is sometimes the effect of the medication as well, you know, because people can go on quite high doses of medication to control the seizures, and then that can have an impact on memory, on concentration. Sometimes people can feel kind of lightheaded as well. And I think that's a side of it we don't support, because I've had it before where until schools really like start to see someone start to slip academically, that they don't really put the support in place. And actually not everyone needs it, but like that's something we don't think a lot.
Sometimes you need, sometimes I forget that my medication can do that. Like I just take a medication and just get on with it. But like, you know, you saying that now, it's kind of reminded me, medication can have side effects, can feel a bit tired, can have bad memory at times.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a really good one.
Absolutely.
But this leads on to a good point as well. Like we know that so many people with epilepsy, like myself as well, have struggled with their mental health. How would Young Epilepsy Support Service be able to help?
Should I get thoughts? Oh my gosh, the mental health side of it is really, really important to think about, because okay, like there's a lot of reasons why young people are going to struggle with their mental health. Obviously, the frequency of seizures, anxiety about having a seizure, then all the pressures we've talked about in this podcast today. We talked a lot about like the pressure from school, bullying, all that kind of stuff adds up. Now, we are not offering like a specific therapy service, if that makes sense, because there are other services that do that, right? And we don't want to deny someone access to proper mental health support, right? We're very clear on what we offer, but we also understand that we want to provide that emotional support and that scaffolding that's going to help someone through, you know, those times, which is going to be more emotionally kind of rocky, more difficult kind of for them. So we want to make sure that we're there and we're kind of very informed by an understanding of like the mental health and emotional well-being needs of like, you know, people in the way that we deliver. And we kind of think a lot about that when we think about how we intervene, how we support someone. We make sure that's kind of like locked in around them, if that makes sense, because it is something that does affect the epilepsy community a lot, if that makes sense. Is that fair to sort of say?
No, I completely agree with you. We're not therapists, so we sort of don't offer the same service as other mental health support services do. We're very much kind of like low-level emotional well-being support, so it's more a mentoring kind of support. So it's a kind of like having a friend there who kind of just understands and gets you and is able to talk about the things that you're struggling with, that they're able to just have a chat with you about. I think what's important to know is that obviously like what I mentioned before, our support is quite a short intervention. It might kind of be 1 to maybe 3 months that we'll kind of be around. You can always access our services, but what we really want to do is kind of get you through that bit of tough time and empower you to then feel that you're able to navigate your way moving forward. And if there's dips and, further down the line, we're always there and we're always around. That's why we set our groups up as well, because sometimes after somebody's come to us, we like to then think, right, let's get you in a group so you can meet other young people. You're at that point now where I think it's better for you to kind of talk to other young people. So that's kind of what our supportive, it's more kind of like a friendly kind of support nature.
You say like a helping hand.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the way to describe it, because with mental health interventions, they normally tend to be quite long term. They need to kind of really get into the nitty gritties of things, but we're there just to kind of support around what's happening at that moment in time. And I think because young people don't like to sit and think about their epilepsy too much, but when something comes there and then, it's like, oh my goodness, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to get through this. We can sit and have a chat and kind of work and navigate, with the support around that. And then after that, you can go off and kind of empower yourself and feel a bit better that somebody understands you and you know what to do.
What I would say to like any young people who are kind of listening to this today is, look, you're not alone. You are not alone. You do not have to face these challenges alone. There are people out there who do understand what you're facing. You don't have to face it on your own. There are people who can support. Even where like, epilepsy might change things, might impact your life, whatever you want to achieve in life, you can do it. You can do it. You just have to think about it. And we have to think about the way you're going to approach it. Yes, there's conversations to be had. Yes, there's a journey to go on. But actually, there is another side to this. And you will find, a way to get to what you want and the goals and ambitions that you want to realize,
There might be a few little junctions along the way that you've had to take a different road.
No one says it's easy, man. That's life, isn't it? No one says it's easy. Like, life is challenging.
Absolutely.
And, being diagnosed with a condition like epilepsy is challenging. It impacts so many areas of your life. But that's the most important thing. It's just being there and being that sort of support. And if we work with a young person and it becomes quite apparent that they are struggling more and more, they're beyond the scope of what we can necessarily help them with, we're very clear about our role and how we help them. So we'll look at like whether we can find other services that we'll recommend to them,
Help them better. Help them more.
Because sometimes if people have a little bit more of a complex situation, they maybe need some more specialist help. And look, we know what our specialism is. We stick to that, and then we pass it on if we need to.
If a young person is struggling with their mental health, we have partnered with Shout, where a young person will be able to access somebody at the other end of the phone. It's a text message service, and it's a 24/7 service as well. And Alex.
So what I say to young people a lot is, I'm not here 24 hours a day. I can come see you a couple of times a week, we can chat, but if anything happens outside of those times, listen, if you need someone, then you text 85258. That's Shout. So you text on 85258 and you text the word purple to that number. And that's a service that's 24 hours, as you were saying, where they can give you some support. And because you text purple, they know that it's related to epilepsy. So they've got a little bit of training and a bit more understanding of how they can support you better around that. And that's where we recommend people to go if they need that little bit of emotional support, really, and support with them.
And we have had young people that have used the service as well. So, it is definitely worthwhile, and they felt that they have been supported very well through it. So it's there 24/7.
That sounds like a very beneficial service. Mariama, can you tell us about how the work you do to ensure that the feedback from young people and children, that their voices are heard, and how it helps improve the services that you provide?
Yeah, absolutely. So the voices of young people are really important. It helps shape what we offer and how we offer it. We always are asking feedback. We've got lots of different ways that we get feedback from young people. Recently, we've put out a poll on social media to help us find out what we should call our new group that's coming up. It's important to hear what young people have felt have worked and don't work as well. Because there might be some things there are some things that we've done and we've gone, that's no good. It's not really working. And on other things, we took a massive leap of faith with the youth club, and that's just been a huge success. So the voices are super, super important. Like I said, it's from any age as well that we get feedback that help us to understand what young people need out there without them telling us, we don't know. We don't want to be making decisions on behalf of young people, what we think is best for them. We need to know what they think would work. We've shaped and evolved and moved forward quite quickly. And we hope to, sort of have spaceships flying around that are big and purple in the future. But, for now, it's definitely our main aim is to really get out there across the UK. We have been based kind of quite more in the south, but now we are really kind of stretching our wings to get really out there across the UK to make sure that young people know about us. They know who we are. They know we're around. And we just want to hear what they think would work, things that they want to get involved in, projects they want to get involved in. So it's super, super important. Their voices are always heard. And it also helps us to then, when we are offering support, to know what they need that support with. Sort of we have common themes that come up, for different ages. But the feedback is super important, not just from the young people, but also from parents as well, how it's helped their child at home in social situations. It could be a parent, guardian, whoever it is, and also from professionals as well about how our services have been able to support them sort of with their patients, sort of coming to clinics and things like that. I think it's not just for young people, it's everybody that accesses our service. It's important to hear how it has helped and supported them.
Oh yeah, like everything we do is led by young people, 100%. We come in with our own ideas, don't we? If we think would help, and we can be quite opinionated, think, we can do that. But if it's not what, the young people we help want, then there's no point.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean? We have to be led by young people. Like the service doesn't work.
No, we might want to do like a crocheting class.
Yeah, if that's not, there's no demand.
But no one's going to sign up for that.
I think as well, and I think it's good you saying about us like spreading out, because it was never like really deliberate that we were kind of more centered in the south. I think this is a UK-wide problem, right? A lot of things tend to be quite London-centric or South-centric. There's a whole country out there, there's a whole apparently allegedly.
Like if you live in London, and that's it.
It's like outside B25. That's it.
I mean, we're all Londoners, so we can quite openly say that.
But but all joking aside, like there are some areas of the UK where there is a lot of like deprivation and where services just aren't there. And so one of the big growth for us in the future, I suppose, is to find those areas where actually our service is really, really needed.
Yeah.
And make sure that the young people in those areas have access to
absolutely
and some support. Because listen, we didn't want to be focused on London. It's just that's where kind of things worked and where things kind of started. So we're kind of making sure everyone is covered.
Not just location-wise as well. It's about young people that, for example, English may not be their first language, okay, or that they've got other learning needs. But we adapt around that. So even though we have to do, we not have to, but our delivery is via online. It might be that we adapt our way that we do deliver. So it might not just be, we might do more visual things. We might watch a video, we might play a game instead that sort of has a bit of a different focus. If English isn't the first language, we take it at the pace of a young person. So we make sure that, it is inclusive. We've got diversity there, from all different types of backgrounds as well. And it's important that young people are able to access us and know that the service is there. It's not just for one cohort of young people that live in a certain area from a certain background. It is accessible to anybody.
Yeah, well, epilepsy anyone can have epilepsy, right? So it can be from any kind of community, any kind of background, any kind of like income. Do you know what I mean? It's not like a thing where you can say, okay, we've got to be prepared to help everyone, haven't we?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I guess another question is, why is it important for young people to stay connected and involved with young epilepsy, and how can they do that?
I think there's a couple of different ways that young people can stay connected and involved with young epilepsy. I mean, we're talking more about our support at the moment. So we're talking more about the kind of events and online groups that we run to support young people. There's obviously other elements like we touched upon, like the Youth Voice Network and things like that, which is kind of a network of young people. But really like connecting with us, whether that's following us online through social media, whether that's having involvement in our online groups, whether that's connecting one-to-one with the support service, because it really is like a gateway to like that epilepsy community. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that like, okay, like we don't want anyone like necessarily defined by the epilepsy, but we do want people to kind of find that mutual support and find those connections. And like I was saying before, realize they're not on their own. Do you know what I mean?
And we're always there as well. You know, it's not that sort of you just come along to, you know, sort of one group and that's it. You know, we have our youth club that is there every month. We've got the Youth Voice Network as well, where young people can join, as you know, Renelle, because you are one of them. And we've also got other services that we can, you know, sort of follow up on. We don't just kind of leave young people once we sort of stop working with them. There's always that accessibility. Like we said, the Youth Voice Network, they can go on and be part of campaigning, advocate and be the voices for other young people who are at that stage of where they want to go out and being able to talk about their epilepsy. And they can also get involved with our fundraising as well. We've got young people who have done bake sales at school, for example. We've got parents that have run the marathon for us. So it's about raising money for us as well. So there's lots of different avenues that they can still stay in touch with us, but not just, you know, via our one-to-one support.
And I think if you're thinking to reach out, you know, to Young Epilepsy Services, like that's a reason for you to do it because it may help you. You know, I did it.
Absolutely.
And look where I am.
Absolutely.
yeah.
And we know it's scary. We know it's scary. Listen, as an adult, you know, sort of sitting down and thinking, oh my goodness, I need to access a service to help me. That can be really daunting as an adult. And you've navigated your way through life. But then as a young person to sit there and think, I need to sit here and talk to somebody about my epilepsy, that can be even more daunting because you're not going to want to do it. It's kind of like that kind of, you know, it doesn't really exist kind of thing, but you have to face it at some point. And we're there to help you with that and help you with that journey. And we're not scary. We're very, very friendly, very, you know, sort of empathetic towards things. And we understand it and we get it. We absolutely get it. Like our campaign says, we get it.
I mean, I just say it like whenever we do the group sessions or we do the one-to-ones, I always turn around and end up saying to young people, look, thank you so much for being so open, for being so honest, for feeling comfortable to talk about this and sharing those experiences, because it's not hating on the context. No, it's not easy, you know, like, I mean, it can be really beneficial. It can help you and it can maybe help other people with a group setting, but like, being like, I get it, like it's hard, do you know what I mean, to be that open. Like I wouldn't necessarily want to jump in and be that vulnerable. So yeah, like that is a big part of it.
Knowing how to get access to support, you know, that's really important. So how would Mariana, what's the first step for someone who wants to access youth support services be?
So the easiest thing is just to Google Young Epilepsy. You'll find our website and you can access us online. You can complete a online referral form. And like I said, it can be a professional completing it on your behalf, a parent carer, or a young person directly. We have young people that refer directly to us as well. It's a referral form that does ask quite a few different questions because we kind of really need to know a little bit about your epilepsy and about your situation and what support you would like, if you wanted one-to-one support or group support. So, you know, it's quite in depth in a way, but it helps us a lot. Or you can also sign up for our youth clubs as well. That's a very simple, quick registration. We receive the registrations and then we get in touch with you. The same with our groups. Look out on our social media as well, because we're always advertising on there. But yeah, the main way to access us would be via our website.
This seems like a great place to wrap up for today. I just want to say thank you, Alex, and thank you, Mariana, and thank you for all the work that you do.
You're welcome. It's been great.
I've loved this.
Yeah, you too.
It's been a great job.
Yeah.
For more information on Young Epilepsy's support services, please visit the Young Epilepsy website. You can find the links in the show notes. Be sure to subscribe and to follow us on social media. We'll see you next time for more conversations that matter.
Together we create possible.